It's 4:20 a.m.
So what we've decided to do for 2023.
Hold on, we're not done with the introduction.
No, I'm trying to come up with an introduction for you. It's witchcraft.
Hello to all our stoned witches, new witchlings, and high priestesses. Welcome to a special Wheel of the Year full moon episode of the Stoned Witches Hour. For 2023, we've decided to do something a little different. Instead of covering the 8 Sabbats of the Wheel of the Year, we're going to be covering a full moon espits.
No more notches in our wheel?
No more notches, or maybe if you want to think of
Different
it,
ticks. This is a different tick in our wheel. We're like taking the shift and then ticking with that shift for the next cycle, the moon cycle. So for 2023, what we're going to do is we have completed the full cycle of Sabbats. So now we're going to move on and complete our wheel with going through the full cycle of Espits.
welcome to the Wheel of the Year Espit edition of the Stoned Witches Hour. And bringing you some witchy knowledge, I'm Layla.
And bringing you some witchy stuff from the Witch City, I'm Shell.
Oh, that's right. Shell over there in Salem, Massachusetts, the witch capital of the world.
And it is so the witch capital of the world.
Over on the East Coast, it is super, super cold this time of year. We're in January, and this year the full moon is on January 6th.
And just as a tidbit for those in Eastern Standard Time, it will be at 6:08 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the 6th. So it's kind of an early evening full moon as far as the peak.
Full moons are important to witches and Wiccans and pagans and all sorts of other heathen type religions because
Farmers too.
farmers too, to everyone, to sailors, the tides are ruled by the full moon.
ER doctors, police.
A lot of them will say anecdotally that on the full moon there are more calls and more visits to the ER. And, people say that the wild comes out on the full moon, and we all kind of feel that energy. It's very easy to go outside on a full moon and to look up and see that beautiful silver light and feel some kind of way.
It's funny because, we've discussed before. I have 2 adult children. I have tortured these children their whole lives, sports and different activities other than that. And no matter where we're going, even if I said it yesterday, the day before, and every day for the 6 months prior, kids, look at the moon, like to the point where they'd be like, yup. And they wouldn't even look. I'd be like, kids, look at the moon. Yep, whatever, mom.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'm still that mom. And now they find it funny and endearing, but there was that point, really, the moon again, mom, it was the same moon as yesterday. And I'm like, but it's not.
That's something that so many witches and pagans have in common. We all kind of have that love and that adoration for the moon in her full goddess form. And it's something that draws everyone, I think. It's hard not to feel magical when you're outside looking at that full moon kind of shining down at you.
I do find it interesting that the almanac, if you ever read the Farmer's Almanac, not witchy or pagan related whatsoever, very moon focused as far as, crop planting and things of that nature. It isn't just kind of that pagan community or that witch community, so to say, that find a deep importance in the moon in those cycles. People all across the land love the moon. How could you not?
Well, a lot of pagan rituals and Sabbats that we just went through last year in our Wheel of the Year series are based on mostly farmer cycles and livestock cycles and how people
Harvesting.
harvesting, how people had to live very close to the land. And the moon cycles are the same thing, just kind of on a much smaller scale. And so we kind of go through that waxing where the moon is getting fuller and bigger, and then that waning cycle where things are getting smaller and slowing down until they're gone. And that kind of follows a whole magical cycle that way of building up to the full moon and gathering that energy and building it to the full moon and then releasing it at that culmination, and then kind of going within and doing maybe banishings or more looking within as that moon is waning and going to the dark.
One thing I've found interesting is, for those of you who don't know it, there is a a quote unquote associated name with each of the moons. Here for January, this is what is called the full wolf moon, which how can you not love a pretty silver wolf howling? On occasion, you look at that full moon and all you can think of is howling at the moon. I
So
actually
true.
hear like legit here over this past summer in the year 2022, we have a neighbor boy, cute kid, probably, I don't know, between 9 and 12, maybe. He will actually open the window and lean out his second floor window and howl at the moon. And I find that so endearing yet hysterical all at the same time.
That's great. I can't say I blame him.
But where these names come from, and I do want to touch on that each month as we discover the names of each of those. The wolf moon derives from this is the time where wolves kind of create that communication amongst each other. It's so cold and so chilly. They can travel. Their howling communications can go further, and they can communicate with their pack. Sometimes it's to protect their territory. Sometimes it's to communicate. They're basically very active because of being able to communicate and needing to communicate for various reasons due to the climate.
Yep. And there are a few other names for that. Wolf moon is the most common one that you'll see for January, but also other indigenous people had very similar names for January's moon, usually relating to the fact that it's the middle of freaking winter. So, like the Cree people called it the cold moon or the frost exploding moon. The Algonquin called it the freeze up moon. The Dakota called it the severe or the hard moon, the Canada goose moon, the great moon, the spirit moon, or the greetings moon. But mostly you'll just see it referred to, like Shell said, as the wolf moon.
I would like to point out it's the first moon, and the first winter moon is not always in January. Fun fact, the first moon of winter is actually whenever the full moon is post solstice. So the first moon of the winter season still could be in December. This year it just happens to not be in December, so this is our first winter moon.
Some of the things people like to do on full moons typically, other than, if you're lucky enough to have a coven or a circle or a group of people that you can do ritual with, you can do your espit, which basically just means a meeting of witches. It can be a ritual, it can be a meeting, it can be a time to get together to do a spell, it can be a full moon. So that's all espit really means. But if you're lucky enough to get together with a coven or a group of people to do a full moon ritual, that's great. But if you can't, there are still a lot of magical things that you can do on the wolf moon.
It also, especially for folks like you and I, we kind of hermit this time of year.
So true.
I don't like to be cold. I don't like to go out. I just want to be warm and cozy. So for those of you like us, there's a lot of good things you can do solitary that are equally as effective if you don't have a coven or a group to go to or just have no desire to leave your house in these temperatures. One great go-to, I mentioned this before we started recording. We have done this, and it didn't even dawn on me until I was mentioning it to you before we recorded. We have been doing this for Lord 25 years. The Crystal Cave meditation, always a great go-to. It's like the OG of getting you into that reflective yet calming space. In these winter months, I look at like the January and February moons, especially, as kind of like that introspection, so to say. It gives you kind of a good opportunity for deep self-reflection. Maybe it's because, well, you're not leaving the house. What the hell else are you going to do besides figure your own shit out for once? Because I ain't figuring my shit out during the summer because I got fun stuff to do.
Yeah, this is a great time to do meditations, in particular, longer meditations or
Right.
self-hypnosis type
And you
meditations.
can find those on like YouTube or Spotify, Apple Music. I mean, you can find the guided ones, but you can also, I mean, kind of the way we did it, you do it enough that you just almost have it memorized and just kind of put yourself there and relive that meditation in your head without needing to be guided. But there are great recorded, guided ones on, like I said, YouTube, Spotify, wherever.
You can absolutely find somebody else reading the meditation and just have that playing in the background for you. You can also record one for yourself if you're interested in that. If you want to write your own script and write your own guided meditation and then record yourself doing that. If you can't find something that's perfect, that works as well too. But meditation is fabulous this time of year. Like Shell said, going inward is something we all kind of already do in the wintertime. So doing it with intention is definitely a really great thing to do on this wolf full moon. Stones for this month, I like quartz, just plain clear quartz, hematite and obsidian, dark colors, protective colors, colors about going within.
I have one of my children is a January baby. Shout out to the boy. His birthstone is garnet.
Oh, I love garnet this time of year.
Yeah, so that to me, that January vibe is that dark, deep, blood-colored garnet. I do like all of the other stones you mentioned, absolutely. I'm sitting here with my hematite ring right now. When I think of January, I think of that garnet.
I love all of those stones together, particularly for January. You've got that blood red, you've got the dark silver gray of your hematite, you've got your black of the obsidian and the white of your quartz, which is all goddess colors, it's the dark of night and that blood red of the sunrise. It's definitely what I think of when I think of January. So those stones for sure to me, particularly this time of year, I like to charge and make sure they're all kind of charged up for the wintertime.
And as far as incense, again, I'm more of the make my own as opposed to buying the sticks. This time of year, I'm pulling exactly what you'd think I'm pulling. Those piney, birchy, very cedary winter smells, but yet, that on the opposite side of that cinnamony, nutmeggy apple. I love these simmer pots. I'm cutting up these oranges, I'm cutting up apples and cinnamon sticks and just burning that thing all day long. That's a ritual in and of itself sometimes.
It's all about the comfort and the hearth and home and being cozy. Shell hates to be cold, but she
Right?
likes the smell of the winter woods while she's cozy with that cinnamon and
I
nutmeg
like
and
it I like that feeling, but I like it to be 70 degrees.
ah, camping season. Cannot wait.
Oh, blink of an eye, it'll be here. I can't wait. I have a really good habit as well that if you use magical tools, good time to cleanse them, whether it be your altar tools, your stones, even tarot cards, good time to cleanse.
How do you cleanse them?
See, that can depend. Depends on my mood, my motivation. Sometimes it can be just as simple as getting them somehow, some way in that moonlight, whether it be you actually take it outside or windowsill, going back to Shell doesn't like to be cold. Sometimes a windowsill is just as effective as long as somehow, some way that light touches it. I feel like I'm good to go, whether it's through a window or just out in nature. Obviously in the summertime, I like to have my things outside and such. But in the wintertime, I am just as content with windowsill.
I agree. As long as you can get the item in the moonlight itself, I feel like that's a key component.
Moonbathe your tools.
What I like to do particularly is I like to charge moon water on the full moon. I also like to cleanse and charge my crystals. What I'll do is I'll have a spot either in my yard or at a windowsill. If I don't have an already consecrated spot, just go to a spot that's going to get a little bit of moonlight and cast a small circle. Just basically visualize light in a circle around you. Acknowledge the directions: east, south, west, north, air, fire, water, and earth. Acknowledge spirit. Envision that this is dedicated space, that this is sacred space for you. And then you can put your tools or your chalice full of water or seashell full of water or crystals in that space. And if your intent is to charge them, you can leave them in that space and know that as the moonlight shines down on them over the night of the full moon, they're going to gather that energy and collect that energy in a safe and sacred place. The next morning, you can go out or go to the windowsill and collect your items and thank that space and just kind of envision it waiting there for the next time that you need it. And then you've got your charged water, and now you have moon water that you can use in spells and rituals for the rest of the month.
And, I'm glad you mentioned for the rest of the month. Real quick, got a question for you. How long do you feel, in your wise opinion, how long do you keep moon water for?
For fucking ever.
Well, I was reading something online the other day where there are some people that believe that every full moon you have to dump out the previous and start anew. And I'm
Sure.
like, that's a waste.
I've been there. I've done that. I've had times in my life when I've done every magical ritual to a T. And there's times when that is certainly applicable. And I do feel that if you're renewing your moon water every month, yeah, I think that's going to be a little bit more powerful, but how much more powerful, really? Really? If it's water that has been blessed by the moon, I don't feel like that's something that goes away, in my personal opinion. But I do see that some people in their practice might feel that they want it to be renewed every month. And so that's a good idea. And there's certainly something to be said for having a regular practice where you cleanse your tools and your altar space with smoke, with sea salt, with moonlight every single month and kind of cleanse and renew that energy. And that's one of those cyclical things. And doing it regularly and in a cycle like that gives it power and can give it magic.
So what you're saying is you do believe moon water has an expiration date.
No. I'm saying I don't believe moon water has an expiration date, but I am saying that if it means enough to you to throw it out or to re-cleanse it or reconsecrate it every month, I can see power in that. But I don't think it's any better personally in my practice.
Remember a couple of years ago, like 2, 3 years ago, there was a super moon that was a blue moon. It was
Yes.
like a blue super moon.
Yeah.
I still got that water. I ain't giving that shit up.
I don't think, see, and I don't think that that would ever lose any kind of charge. If I was going to be doing a spell, a very powerful spell, and you offered me moon water that had been charged last month, or moon water that was from your supercharged moon a couple years ago, I probably would take the couple years ago water.
That's
So
what I'm saying.
right. So can moon water go stale? Sure, absolutely. Can that magic drain out for some reason? Absolutely. But does it usually? Not in my opinion, no.
I'm just thinking in terms, if you try to equate this to Catholicism, I'm just wondering if there's someone at the Vatican who is tasked with, nope, that holy water's expired. Nope, can't use that holy water anymore. Well, you can use that holy water, but I don't know how that's going to work out for you. But I also do believe in power of belief. And if
Yes,
you believe it still has that, then it does. And if you believe that it has lost it, it is weaker, than it is. So I do believe part of it is also power of belief.
I agree. Here's another cool thing that I wanted to talk about, something that I like to do for rituals, full moons, and other rituals as well. We've been talking about Pennsylvania Dutch hex signs and sigils in particular lately on our regular podcast. And I got to thinking about the way that I was taught how to do sigils.
Now, I love the thing with sigils. And one thing that I've done in the past is, sometimes when you're a mom, you got to kind of multitask, get stuff done, do things in bulk. The full moon is a good time to take some of those sigils. I was always a fan, still am, of carving them into candles. I love candle magic. So I would take those sigils and, maybe I needed to do something on the new moon, but on the full moon, I would create those sigils, carve them in the candles, charge it under the full moon, and then tuck them away and then use them on the new moon. Because leading up to the new moon, I might have mom activities and I didn't have time to do that. So I would do those things like preemptively on the full moon so that they were ready and magically charged by the new moon.
Basically, sigils are just a type of symbol that you create. It's a magical symbol. It can be created from other well-known magical symbols that you use and charge with your intention, or you can create one very personal to you. And one of the easiest ways to do that is write out your intention. Say you want to have the intention of, my podcast is wildly successful. So you would write that down on a piece of paper, and then you'll go through and cross off any repeating letters. Then go through and cross off any vowels. Take the remaining letters and then write them on top of each other, one on top of the other. Make it decorative if you want. Make it fancy. Connect them in ways that look good or feel good to you. And when you're done, you'll have a symbol. It won't look like a letter. It'll look like some type of symbol. That's your sigil that stands for the intention that you wrote down. You can take that sigil, like Shell said, and then carve it on a candle. And then anytime you burn that candle, whether it's at a full moon or a dark moon or anytime, whenever you burn that candle with the sigil that you created on it, it will help to release that energy and to move you closer to that intention. And if you create that sigil on a full moon, all of that energy, all of that power of the fullness of the culmination of energy, you can pour that right into that sigil and have that energy there as if you've already completed the intention that you wrote down.
Well, and that's kind of what the universe is doing at the time of the full moon. It's kind of inviting us to take pause and ask ourselves, what are we manifesting, or what do we want to manifest in our lives? So, you take that sigil that you've come up with, whatever way you do it. You can do it the way that Layla mentioned, or maybe you want a horse for Christmas, so your sigil's a horse, whatever, however you come up with it. But you take that sigil and you kind of use that in whatever way works for you, whether it's candle magic or written magic, or if it's just something, like a symbol that you just visualize in your head, you use that to manifest that. That's what the full moon, the universe, and the moon are inviting you to do.
Yep.
What are you manifesting? What do you want to manifest?
And charge your sigil with that. As you're creating the sigil and drawing it, make sure you're thinking of all those things that you want to manifest and pouring that energy into your sigil creation. And then draw a circle around the sigil to hold that energy in. Just like the moon is a full circle, you need to draw a circle around your sigil to kind of gather that energy into it.
Another thing I just thought of, I've also written them down on a little square paper, it may be a pretty marker or colorful, depending on what it was, and like carry that in your wallet or your purse or your pocket for either a full moon cycle or maybe a partial cycle, depending on your intent and what you're trying to manifest. But sometimes just continually focusing on that sigil.
You can also create a sigil using the write it out letters method and made some sort of design at the end that really invoked that intention. Then take that and put it on a perfume bottle or put it on a bottle of oil. Like, say you're trying to draw love into your life and you write your intention, you create your sigil, and then you put that sigil on a bottle of rose oil
Right.
and charge that under the full moon. And then use that oil to draw the sigil on your skin with your perfume or with that oil. It's yet another way to kind of bring that energy in, but it's all been charged by the full moon and by the energy that that full moon invokes.
Think of the full moon. I always think of the full moon as like a pregnant belly. As that pregnant belly is getting bigger till it's at its complete fullness, you're trying to
Grow
make those
something.
manifestations. Yeah, grow something, put things into action. You don't need to be fancy, and you don't need to have a lot of tools and things like that. You don't need to have a coven or a group of people. You just need you and the moon.
Oh, I love that. That's a very beautiful sentiment. And those are some of the times I think I have felt the most magical is when I have been by myself or with our coven out in the woods under the full moon and just reveling in that light and in that fullness of being together or just being by myself, me and the moon together. And it's primordial, maybe something so magical about it.
I think both of them are equally magical, that doing it with your posse and then taking it all in by yourself.
Oh my gosh, I agree. There's something special about both of those.
Here's an interesting thing I would like to interject here and get your opinion. Well, I kind of know your opinion, but I'm going to force you to tell the people's your opinion. The full moon, in my opinion, is really a 3-day event. Basically, it is. It totally is. And then basically it is again, kind of thing, is how I look at those 3 days.
I agree.
So let's say, for example, pulling this out of thin air, that the full moon is on a Friday night. You're busy Friday night. The kids have a concert. You got to babysit the dog,
You've got
whatever.
a hot date,
You got
you're
a
going to
hot
the
date. You
club.
got a work party. That moon is still full on Thursday and Saturday just as well. So I kind of look at it as when it comes to terms of full moon, I give myself that 3-day window. So like this full moon, January 6th, for me, it's like the 5th, 6th, and 7th.
I agree. Both in our Circle Almarock Coven days and in our
Regular days.
regular days, in our any tradition that we have learned in or been a part of, it has been pretty widely accepted that the full moon and even high holidays, you kind of have that window. I like how you explained it. It almost is, it totally is, and it still kind of is. And
Yeah.
yeah, and so you can work with that. That's workable. If you're doing high magic, obviously
The
you need
day.
the exact
The
minute and the
day.
day.
You
That's
do it
right.
at, if you're doing high magic, you're doing it at 6:08 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on
That's right.
January 6th,
And
people.
you're in your robes, you have your sigils, you have everything marked out. And I love that. There's beauty in that.
But if I'm
But
doing the crystal cave meditation is my full moon ritual solitary, I can do that on Thursday night at like 11 p.m. No harm, no foul.
do your crystal cave meditation. Put your crystals in the window that gets the most moonlight.
Right,
Put a chalice of water there. Do your blessing, do your meditation, and go to bed. And, and then go party Friday night. That's
right, right,
howl at the moon in a different way.
right, right. So, that's again going back to some of the things I love about witchcraft and paganism is that it's okay that I do it on Thursday and no one's damning me to anywhere.
That's right. It's all what you want to do, what works for you. And that's what the beauty is of these pagan and heathen religions, is that it's all about flow. It's all about cycles. It's all about working with the rhythm of yourself and your spirituality and not against it, or not with someone else's schedule, your rhythm, your cycles.
And if we haven't learned anything else in the last 2.5 years, we have learned flexibility.
Right? So I will be doing a solitary ritual on the full moon at 6:08 Eastern, which is middle of the freaking afternoon in California. But I'll be doing a ritual at 6:08, and I know Shell will be doing something. So let's all of us go outside, even for a second, and howl at the full moon on January 6th. All of our little cyber coven here, our stoned witches.
But what I would like, speaking of all of our folks out there, our listeners, our friends, our peeps, we want to know what do you do for the full moon? What are some of your traditions, ideas?
What are some of your questions?
What are
What do
your
you want to know?
questions?
Do you have questions about full moon rituals, dark moon rituals? Do you have questions about spell
Lay it
casting?
on us, folks.
For our Wheel of the Year series, we're going to be doing a monthly show focused on the full moon and different spells and rituals that you can do. So ask away. What do you want to know?
And you can send those questions, tips, tricks, ideas, thoughts to the stonedwitcheshour@gmail.com.
January full moon, wolf moon. I hope all of you out there enjoy it. Stay warm, howl at the moon. Make sure to charge your crystals and make a little bit of full moon water this month.
And have a little bit of introspection. Take that time to kind of be a hermit for a minute. Look inside yourself. What do you need to work on for the next moon cycle? Because guess what? Every cycle's leading to summer. That's definitely.
Thankfully, we're very grateful for that.
I feel like there's a lot of holiday seasons in the wintertime, but yet, darn it, the holiday is the first day of summer in my world. So, take the time and handle your business. That's what this time of year in the universe is kind of trying to get us in the mood for. I mean, Lord, tax season just started. If that isn't the universe telling you it's time to go within and get it together, nothing else is. So take that minute and kind of collect yourself while you're inside and cozied up with your hot chocolate and your fuzzy blanket.
There you go. Absolutely. So stay cozy and
Stay witchy.
and we'll see you next month on the Wheel of the Year for February's full moon. What is February's full moon, Shell?
We're going to take a step even colder and we're going to head towards the snow moon. I would like to say I sent Layla this cute little graphic, the full moons of 2023, and they actually call the January moon, and I have to point this out to you. They call it the stay home moon. Preach it, people, preach it.
I love that.
So we're going to, February next month, we are going to pick up on February 5th with the snow moon.
And that'll be after my birthday, but during my birthday month. So, yeah, we will see you in February for the snow moon for our next Wheel of the Year moon series.